Welcome to the Tower Yoga Podcast, where we dive deep into the heart of yoga and community. Come along with us as we explore the transformative power of yoga, share insights, and inspire one another on this journey of life. I'm Kellee Williams, and I'm your host and the co-founder of Tower Yoga. Thank you for joining our yoga community. Welcome in to another podcast episode, dear listeners. I'm super stoked because today we have one of my best friends, Kathleen, on the podcast. We are talking all things, well, not all things, some things, dreams. Dreams is private myths and myths is public dreams is really what we're getting into. So it's definitely not all things, but
we're considering
it's good
all
stuff.
things.
So we are considering as many things as we possibly can and coming together to talk to you all. So yeah, I have known Kathleen for a decade plus. We met in yoga, and so it's been really cool to see her journey as she dives deeper and deeper, no pun intended, into depth psychology. So it's just been such a privilege, and it's really cool to have our paths converge in this way now where we're actually collabing, because there are so many parallels between the work you do and the work that I found myself in. So let me give you a little bit of time to introduce yourself. Please let us know anything that you would like us to about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm so excited just to have this conversation with you. I mean, we have so many conversations during the week, whether it's just voice noting or going on walks, whatever. So a little bit about me. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. That's my job. That's what I get paid to do. So I also have just completed my coursework for a PhD in depth psychology, which is more of a theoretical lens in how to conceptualize the world around us and the world within us. And that has brought me into the world of dreams. I use that often in my clinical work, and I use it as a daily practice. And it really has helped inform even my yoga practice. So that's a little bit about me. There's more about me, but we won't have to go there today.
There's so much more about you, but yeah, that'll be another time. So, the reason why we're together and doing this episode is to talk on the correlation between like myth and dream. And you shared this quote that's so powerful from Joseph Campbell. And I feel like actually one of the very first book clubs I ever did in my life, 10 plus years ago, was The Power of
Oh,
Myth from
cool.
Joseph Campbell. So I was just reflecting on that this morning, and it's so cool. But this quote is: dreams are private myths, myths are public dreams. So can you explain, or, just attempt to explain, and it's a big thing, the connection between personal dreams and collective myths?
Yes. So I think in order to go there, I'd like to maybe define more clearly some terms on like what even is a dream. I mean, there's so many ways to think about what a dream is.
Yes.
We can go like the neuroscience route, which is not my specialty, and I won't go there, but we're going to go more of a Jungian route of what a dream is. And to me, a dream is kind of a phenomenon from the unconscious that reflects the capacity to produce images and symbols in our sleep. And I love this quote by Carl Jung, like I said, that who defined dreams as like a spontaneous self-portrayal in symbolic form. I'm doing this by memory of the actual situation of the unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So, dreams, when we sleep, these images come up to us and are gifted to us as a way to understand what's underneath the surface of our waking personality. So let's put that aside. That's a dream. Okay, what's a myth?
Yeah.
Well, to me, myths are narratives that encapsulate kind of a shared, timeless themes and motifs in human existence. So they're narratives that span across time of what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes these myths appear in our personal dreams of what it's like and what it's been like to be like a primordial human.
Yeah.
So when we look at the themes of our dreams, we can say, okay, this dream actually reminds me of the myth of Persephone, or anything that kind of has these thematic um images or narratives. So when we look at our personal dream, we can say, actually, this is connected to humanity across time.
Yeah. Totally. And and it's interesting
So
too
a
because
lot of information at once.
it is. It definitely is. But I would imagine, I mean, I would imagine that like most, if not all listeners resonate in some sense of that you can recognize characters or themes in your dreams, and that didn't just come out of nowhere. That came from the collective
Mm,
stories that we're learning, that we're living,
mhm.
that we're playing out.
Right. That is actually an embodied experience in some ways to live out this collective myth that appear to us in very personal ways in our sleep.
So it's kind of like, I don't know if this is like what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing, but it's like, okay, so how does what shows up in our dreams influence the
Right.
collective, and how does the collective narrative influence what we're going, like I can more easily see how like collective myths and stories influence our personal dreams, but now I'm wondering,
Yeah.
how do our personal dreams actually inform what we do in our waking life and how we uh, approach the people and places that we encounter.
Mm. I kind of see it like a camera lens where you're toggling back and forth to like you can zoom in really close and you can zoom out really far, and it's
Yeah.
all in one lens. So it's kind of a both and situation that like I mean, and this is a yogic principle that we're all connected,
Yes.
that there is oneness. I keep coming back to a practice that we had together over time, and you used the word soham. I am that.
Hmm.
I am that. We are that. It's all of it. So
Hmm.
dreams just kind of continue to reflect I am that, we are that, both in the collective and personal story.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have any like personal stories or examples of how like a dream of yours has aligned with a myth that maybe most people are aware of?
Mm.
I know you're on
Ooh,
the spot here.
I mean, two. I know. Thanks, Kelly. Two come to mind. This is a very, very short dream, and it was just an audible dream. I didn't actually have a visual or a symbol like that I could see in my mind's eye. I heard in a dream a voice say to me, "Don't forget to ask the Pythia." And I was like, I responded, the dream ego, we call it the I in the dream, responded, "How do you spell that?" Because I was like, what is a Pythia? And the dream voice responded, Pythia. And I was like, and I woke up just repeating Pythia. I didn't know what a Pythia was at all. So, as one does, you get on your phone and you type in Pythia. And Epithia actually is from the Oracle of Delphi, who
Mhm.
she was a woman that sat in the temple and interpreted dreams. And I had no idea of this oracle. I had no idea of this myth. And it's actually connected to the myth of Gaia, I believe. Don't ask me to go in that because I can't fully remember. But I thought, in what in the world just happened? Consciously, I had no idea what a Pythia was. I had never been to Greece at that point. Uh, so, I mean, that really opened me up to like, in what ways do I need to embody? Am I embodying a Pythia? And that was at the very start of my PhD program, where we were opening up dreams and learning how to sit with dreams and, studying Carl Jung and other theorists. And I was like, okay,
Wow.
maybe I am in some ways needing to ask the Pythia. So that's one example. I've had other dreams where when I look at the framework, and I won't go into it because I can't quite remember the details. I have to go back into my dream journal where I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is an Armenian myth. Actually, it was a myth of a woman named Tamar who lived on this encapsulated island, and she was in love with this commoner, this man that lived outside of the island, and every night she would, light her torch, and the man from the mainland would swim across the sea to see her, and they would be united, and they weren't supposed to be together. But this her father found out that she was having relationships with this like common man, and he came and put out the torch, and then he ended up dying in the ocean as he was swimming because he couldn't see the light. And like the lore is that when you're on the island, you can hear him saying like "Ach Tamar," like "Oh Tamar." That's what the island is named after. And that seems like a basic like Romeo and Juliet sort of story, but I realized um, through other images of my personal dreams, like in what ways am I dimming my own light and not permitting myself to get into the water or the unconscious to unite with like the inner opposite of myself. So dreams have kind of continually revealed that to me over
Yeah,
time.
and that's so interesting. And there are like, it just made me think of when you were talking about how like water can represent the unconscious. Uh, of course, it can represent
Mhm.
anything that's personal to you, but there do seem to be these themes that are shared with people, and that's like one of like the biggest, most common
Yes.
ones of water. I just wanted to say, in case someone didn't know that who's listening.
Right. And that actually pulls into like what an archetype is. So water is an archetype, which are universal psychic patterns, um patterns of being human that exist in all times and space and places. So what we can do with images in our dreams is we can like associate the personal realm, like, okay, what is water to me? What is, the seas of Akhtar, what does that mean to me? Well, there's a cultural connection that is very personal.
Hmm.
But if we pull it back, remember this lens, we're pulling it back, and we're like, over time, water has meant like the unknown. You can only see what's on the surface, but there are depths and deep, dark things below. There's a whole world
Yeah,
underneath that's not seen to the naked eye. So it's really, you really pulled it together. And like when we have these dreams with these images, what is the personal that we can associate? And what is the collective that we can kind of amplify and open up to the collective?
totally. I think I can share one dream that I kind of worked through in a couple workshops ago that you did at Tower Yoga.
Mm,
And it was this dream that was really powerful. I mean, it was visual. I remember like the whole dream, and like not to go like too deep just for time's sake, but it was a dream where I was being chased by what looked like a French clown, like a joker, trickster kind of clown. And it had a big sword, and this clown was chasing me. I'm running and I'm like looking around. No one's helping me. And I'm like, hello, like help, 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 like all around. No one's helping. And I'm like looking into homes, and
mm,
people are like, it's, you know, typical, I don't know, like 1950s American dream, like white picket fences, like big picture windows, people like serving like sit down dinner with their whole family. And they're like looking out, and they can see that I'm running from this
mm,
clown that has a sword, and nothing else is bizarre in the dream. Everything else is like actually hyper like normal and real, like almost too much so, like movie set. So I'm tripped out, I'm running, I'm
mm,
terrified. And I finally get to a point where like I can't jump over this specific like fence or thing. And I just am like, I'm exhausted from running. Like I just have to face this guy and the sword, because like there's nowhere to go and I don't have
mm.
any energy. I don't have any more. So I stop, I turn around, and the Joker clown thing stabs me with the sword, but it's inflatable. It's a blow up sword. And and he
I forgot
yeah,
about,
and he
yeah, I
said,
remember this
"What
now.
you fear isn't real." And I woke up directly after that,
Hmm.
and I like laughed. The first thing I did when I woke up was laugh my ass off. And so in your workshop, we did what I'll get into in a moment. And I think it'll be really cool to go into this just to talk about it a little bit here, or if someone's listening to this in real time, you
Mm.
and I are collaborating on a workshop together on July 12th. So hopefully, if someone's listening to it in real time, you can join us if this is sounding interesting to you. Uh, but what we did is you asked us to recall a dream that was powerful or reoccurring or something that stood out. And so, of course, this one did. And you asked us to animate something in the dream that was like super significant. It's easy, I think, and now I've done this several times with lots of dreams. I sit with a lot of significant things in my dreams, and it's easier to do it with something in the dream that is like human like, or I've even done it with like animals who can speak. And
Mm.
it's a little harder with like objects. And for instance, like there was one dream I had where there was like a really powerful, significant door, and I'm like, how the hell do I animate this door?
Mm.
I did it, because I've had the practice with like animals and humans. So it's a little easier to animate things that feel significant in dreams that talk, or you could see talking, or you've seen talking in a cartoon or something before. Um, but you can even do it with
Mhm.
like a freaking door or a table or a glass of water or something. It's interesting, but it's possible. But,
Mm.
anyways, this clown figure was the most significant thing in that dream. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to, like, in the meditation, ask this clown to come forward and ask him, like, what is this
Mm.
about? Like, what do you mean? Like, what I fear isn't real. Like, I want this lesson.
Or it's not threatening, actually.
Yes. Like, tell me more though, was kind of like, like what I asked this clown, and
Mm.
he said, "It's the cosmic joke, and what you seek is seeking you." And I was like, "Interesting." So I did what you did. I Googled the cosmic joke, and it was that thing of like, of exactly that. Like, what a lot of times, what we are afraid of, in hindsight, we laugh, right? It's like, "Oh, that was so funny." Or sometimes things are so messed up. It's like that whole thing of like all you can do is laugh. Like I hate to like bring
Mm.
well, I don't hate to bring politics in it right now. It's charged and it's whatever and it's a bummer, uh, to say the least. But that's how I feel with things happening on the world stage right now, and it's sad, and I know it's not
Mhm.
necessarily, like, funny, like, "Ha ha," like, this is just light but I find myself so terrified in certain moments that all I can do is laugh, you know? It's like
Right.
and that was sometimes, like, the
And
cosmic joke of things, of life.
well, what I'm really hearing in this dream too, Kelly, is the tension of really opposite experiences. Like this clown that's supposed to be funny but is frightening and scary. But then when you turn and face what is really threatening or scary to you, you realize that it's actually not the threat that you imagined it to be. So like our dreams often call us to hold the tension of opposite things together and to see what transforms and what is the third way. So when you animated the the trickster, the clown in the dream, it offered a third way to you rather than if you were to continue to run. And I'm not saying that everything that should be turned and face. Sometimes we just gotta like let's run,
Cut and
let's
run.
get out of here, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But when you yeah, cut and run, let's get out of here. But when you faced it, it had an offering for you, and there's so many ways that you can be like, okay, who is my inner clown? How am I the clown in this scenario? How am I the sword that is actually not threatening? So offers so many fractal
Well, and it really
options.
brings in the archetypes like you were talking about before, and there's some major ones, right? There's the
Mm-hmm.
trickster, there's the mentor, there's the hero, and more people would be probably like familiar with that in large part thanks to Joseph Campbell because of the whole hero or heroine's journey kind of thing. Um, and so,
Yep.
yeah, that kind of brings it back to what you mentioned before about archetypes and how they help us understand
Mm-hmm.
uh, our individual like story.
And our collective story. I mean, to go back to like what's happening politically, is to say, in
You
so
know who
many
the clown
ways,
is.
like
No, just kidding.
the jokesters of, I know, the clowns of politics here are threatening and scary, and also like, what? Like, kind of funny, but not. Like, we're existing in this tension of very opposite, bizarre feelings. So, we hosted a social dreaming workshop, which I would love to do again, where we use our dreams in a collective fashion, that this, you sharing this dream, which was personal, becomes our dream, and
Hmm.
together we work it as like, well, what's going on in the zeitgeist here that
Yes,
is an offering to like collective consciousness.
totally. Absolutely. So yeah, so that is something that we did in that workshop, and I think we probably will. This is something that anyone could do. So even if you're listening to this like way after the fact, you can, if you have a significant dream and there's a symbol in there that stands out to you, you can most certainly do something like that where you call that thing forward, animate it in your mind, ask it a question, or even
Mhm.
just sit with it to let it like reveal whatever it needs to. Maybe you just sit there and, be ready to listen. Um, that's a way that you can work with dreams. I'm just trying to give like a tangible tip, even if someone's listening to this way later and doesn't make it to the workshop that we put together.
Totally.
But I do think that in the workshop, that's something that I would love
Right.
to facilitate people to do, if we can. We'll see how it
Hmm.
goes. That would be really, really cool. Another thing that you had already talked about is that you have a dream journal, and that
Mm.
you will probably take people through some writing prompts in the workshop. But what are some, like, what is a dream journal? If no one knows that now who's listening and they don't end up making it to the workshop, how could someone use a journal to track their dreams? How can they use a journal to like, what
Hmm.
is there a prompt that they can use to like reflect on a dream?
Um, so I think dream journals are really important in acknowledging the importance of documenting what is emerging. So it's telling psyche, it's telling our soul, the collective and personal soul, like what is emerging is important to kind of record, so that you can continue to remember over and over and over again. And when I say remember, I want to put the hyphen between re and member. We're remembering parts of ourselves that psyche wants to reveal. So, what I typically suggest is putting um, a journal or a notepad right on your bedstand, or even underneath your pillow or next to you if there's room. Just acknowledging, like, I'm honoring that I want to remember the lost parts or the unknown parts of me when I wake up in the morning. And it can even be done on your phone. Like, there's no right or wrong way, but there's something about allowing the images to like move through your hand onto paper. And sometimes I'm even like, let me just write these things down real quick on my phone. Um, Typically, what I do is I just write out the narrative of the dream, and then I allow it to sit, and then I come back to it and I'm like, okay, what, first I look for the landscape of the dream. So like, is the dream taking place in a desert? Is it in a pool? Because typically that can offer like, what is the inner landscape of what's happening inside of me or around me.
Mm.
And then like, are there any images or words or sounds that are grabbing my attention? Let me write those down, and let me associate, meaning like allowing to write about anything that I'm connecting to in this image. So
Mhm.
if I have a dream about a clown, what comes up for me? And I try not to guard myself in that. Like, literally anything.
Do you mean
There's
like
no right or wrong.
not self-editing?
Don't self-edit.
Okay.
Like, allow it, even if it's like crude or rude or mean or like doesn't make sense, go for it. Because there in it lies like kind of the personal experience of that archetype or that image, and we can kind of begin to pull up like, ooh, what is this image saying to me on a personal level? So these are called associations, and it's really a Freudian, it can be more of a Freudian practice, like associate the personal experience of these images. What are the personal narratives?
Mhm.
And then if you want, you can open up uh, those images to amplification, which is what Carl Jung really offered in the world of analytic psychology. Amplifying means like connecting those images to any motifs, any fairy tales, any myths that kind of offer the same framework of their narrative or the image. So how is this connected to the culture? How is this connected to the collective in a way that I can maybe read the story of, again, like Persephone. I've been really sitting with Persephone these days. My dreams have kind of been illuminating her. And when we read about these myths, we say, okay, like this gives me an actual framework of what might be moving inside of me.
Mm.
And then, like you said, we might be able to animate these things where we actually call in the energy of the symbol and we have a conversation with it. And again, it's kind of like associating where we're like, don't guard it. There's no right or wrong here. And sometimes people who are more in their heads, like I actually exist more in my head at times than my body. I'll pull up my laptop and I'll say, okay, this is what I need to type to this person or this image. And then I sit and I allow the image to move through me, and then it begins typing back to me. So we're having like a narrative dialogue on the computer that kind of helps me um, if I'm feeling really stuck. And then I close the computer, I close the laptop, and I come back to it, and it has some like gold nuggets that offer me more consciousness in some ways.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I had a therapist kind of like early on in like my teen years teach me about that. And that's really, really cool.
Mm.
Even just like writing to like certain feelings and emotions and then having it respond. And so it's, yeah, it's cool to think about
Mm-hmm.
doing that with powerful symbols in dreams. And you know, you talking about Carl Jung, I know his like big goal in life was to become whole, you know, like not necessarily good, but whole.
Mm.
And so do you think that there is something that is like left out if people denounce importance of dreams? Doesn't matter. Like
Mm.
I just hear that a
Hmm.
lot from
You
people where
know,
it's like, oh, it's all nonsense, you know, and it's like, oh, but there's so much
oh
there.
yeah, it's just a dream. Right. Um, some people, is there something left out? I mean,
Like on the path of understanding yourself.
I think what's important is that one learns to think and live and embody in symbolic ways. And dreams offer symbols to consciousness. But someone might not be a dreamer in the same way and not might not like get these intense dreams or even dreams that they recall, but you can animate, you can amplify, and you can associate to the world around us. So I think what's important is that, and what has been lost in modern humanness, is the ability to live symbolically and to reanimate the world. So
Hmm.
yeah, to me, when people say, oh, dreams don't matter, I don't really dream, I'm like, it makes me feel a little sad because it's such a like numinous experience. It can be, but there are other ways to exist in that. There's not one path.
Right. And there's, you know, there's myths like we talked about, but I even have a lot of yoga students who
Mhm.
really, if I happen to teach a class where I'm teaching on a myth of like one of the postures or something, I can see like their face kind
Mhm.
of turn in, their body close, where they're like, can't we just freaking move? Like, do you have to
Mm.
talk about Hanuman or say this or say that? There's probably lots of reasons why. I wonder if there's, you know, like religious things going on or, uh, you know, oh, they're just
Mm.
they're fairy tales or like whatever, you know? So I,
Mhm.
that makes me a little sad when I'm offering something like that, just because I feel there's so much there to be inspired by. Not that like someone has to believe in Hanuman, like a half
Yes.
monkey, half human person. That's not what it's about. And so maybe there's something there where someone feels like they actually have to believe that this story like happens, that this creature is real and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. Um, which I try really hard to make sure it's clear that you don't have to, but there's sometimes people are completely closed off to that,
Right.
and they're still going to get something really good out of doing the practice and embodying it. They don't have to conceptually like go with me there
Mhm.
and follow everything, but I do think that it's just so rich, and that's why I feel like myths exist. And even speaking on like yogic philosophy, which there's tons of, in order for us
Mhm.
to connect to like the divine, which is the goal of yoga and self observation, I think that it's
Mhm.
easy to get stuck in rites and rituals, to have Shiva or Ganesh or Hanuman on the altar to light an incense, and then to like move on and then just do the postures and be like, cool, I did the postures, I lit the incense, I bowed to the altar. Now I'm going to go and do my day and not think about anything anymore. I checked that off my list,
Mm.
when really it's like the symbol, the deity or whatever, the splits, doing the splits, but also thinking about the story of Hanuman and letting us be. That's why the symbols exist, for us to reflect on our own personal journey and to be inspired by whatever that symbol represents, which the virtues of these figures
Mhm.
in the yogic tradition, we'll just stick with that for the moment, is for courage, right? Is for, I mean, I even think
Mm.
about like the myth of Arjuna, like on the battlefield with Krishna, and like his higher self, God, whoever, whatever you want to say, and stuck in the chariot on the floor in analysis paralysis, can't understand, how do I involve myself in this
Hmm.
battle of like good and evil. We all have an inner battle between good and evil within inside, if you want to call it that. We all get stuck on the bottom of
Right.
the chariot, and we have to rise above somehow. We have to connect to something that the ego will trust, that can pull us out and make us brave
Mhm.
to show up in whatever way
Yeah.
that we are meant to. It's our dharma, our sacred duty, our and so it's these things are their stories. And it's funny because we teach our children through storytelling of morals and these kinds of things, but something happens when we get
Mhm.
older and we're like, oh, that's all nonsense. you know Dreams are whatever.
Mhm.
It's just because you're going through so much and your mind can't process and as much during the day, and it needs to
Right.
finish. And these myths, like, oh, like, yeah, Hanuman, okay, like leaped from wherever to Sri Lanka, to stop. It's I'm like, when does that switch?
Well, there's been a real shift in consciousness, I think, probably pre-enlightenment, where everything becomes literal. Like like everything has to be rational. Everything has to make sense. Instead of it, we used to live through tribal stories that taught us how to exist in relationship to earth, to plants, with animals, not to, it's even with. And for me, yoga, like, I've thought about this many times. I'm like, okay, are the asanas actual archetypes that I get to embody in this moment? And you said it last week in class. What does my breath feel like in this asana? What does my breath feel like in this asana? And when we embody that, and when we allow ourselves to be curious about what's moving through us in these postures, our consciousness, our I would say our path to individuation, which means our path to wholeness,
Mhm.
it opens up if we're open to it. And some people aren't, and they might have a different path that they want to take, and they might come to yoga just for the physical practice, like, oh my god, I'm going to sweat off my Taco Bell that I had 3 days ago and I'm going to feel great,
Yeah.
and that's great. But also
Yeah.
yoga, along with dreams, offer a path to deeper understanding so that we don't get stuck in living unconsciously.
Mhm.
When we live unconsciously, there's a real repercussion for that, and we can go back to politics if you want.
Yeah.
Um,
It's clear. Just look at the
but I
global
think the goal
stage
of
and what's
life is to
happening.
be more conscious.
I think
Totally.
I think like, examples of well, not even examples, but dreams and myths, they do help to preserve like entire cultural heritages and if you want to get back into
Mm-hmm.
remembering, like collective memory of a community of people. And so I'm really happy that we're
Yes.
getting
Yes.
together and bringing this forward. And I know it's something that's like a little different and a little like esoteric. And it's not just going through the yamas and the niyamas. And we could go through all of the waking states from the yogic philosophy perspective, and like let that like be an anchor. And maybe in the future you and I can collaborate on something like that together. But I just feel that we have forgotten something as a collective that is really important and really
Mm-hmm.
necessary if we're going to continue forward in any kind of way that is sustainable. And so, one of the reasons that
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy that we're collaborating on this is not just because we talk about this kind of shit, on the daily pretty much. And it's fun to share things that you do a lot in your
Yep.
life, but also because I'm feeling the intensity of what's happening. I said it a million times on the global stage right now. And there's lots of ways I think we can all contribute to remembering and understanding and moving forward. And some of those look really obvious in, with activism, with where you're putting your money, like who you're voting for, and all those things I'm doing as well. But I think this genuinely is one way to contribute to hopefully like more
Mm-hmm.
peace and harmony and understanding in the world. So thank you for doing this with me.
And it offers to go back. Well, we're doing it together, and I'm so honored to like do it collectively within our beautiful community, and like to bring this all back to a myth. It reminds me of actually Frankenstein, which is, if we were to open up the story of the creature, where we have this, Dr. Frankenstein had this like kind of god thing, like I can create man and I can take all the parts of the dead that have been cast off to remember. He actually remembered into a being, and then he abandoned it,
Mm.
and the cost of the abandonment was catastrophic because the creature became violent, and we are living out that violence of the parts of us that have been cast off and then kind of othered. And we can do our own research, but the myth of Frankenstein is, well, Frankenstein is kind of like a modern Prometheus, which is a Greek myth
Mhm.
that is like, we could probably keep going and going and going. It is so ancient to our beingness. So I think like
Mm.
just the point of this workshop is to remember the parts of us that have been cast off through our dreams, that we can embody in our yoga practice or our daily practice or our relationships, so that it doesn't turn violent against us and the collective as we kind of head into a really interesting time in this iteration of modern world.
Mhm. Boom. Mic drop right there.
Boom.
So if you are listening to this in real
Mic
time,
dropped.
yeah, mic dropped, done. But if you are listening to this in real time, please, please, please join us. This is going to be very, very
I would love it.
interesting. And yeah, yeah, just, I love this kind of stuff. It's so intellectually stimulating, and also like, because we're bringing in embody ways to embody it. This is a workshop that you will feel through, not just learn with your conceptually, and go home and be able to regurgitate this, that, or whatever kind of term. Some of that might happen, but really this is a workshop that you will embody. It's so beautiful. And I
Yes.
think it's really, really, really needed. So yet it's happening on July 12th. That's a Friday evening. I have to look up what time that is right now, because times and dates for me are
Uh,
they speaking of
it
that,
will
like,
remind me too.
is
We're the
time a
same. I'll be
myth?
like, it's like it's a Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah.
What is
What
time?
is time? Maybe we'll get into that in the workshop too, but it's happening. Dreams Meet Myths, an inner exploration. It's happening Friday, July 12th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. That is happening in the Lotus Room. We hope to see you there. However, if you are not listening to this in real time, I hope that you got a takeaway from this. Is there any way that people can, are you open and available for people connecting with you outside of the workshop? How do they do that?
Totally. Yes. So I'm wondering if we can link my website.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll just link your website in the show
Mhm.
notes. And then we'll also link your
Cool.
Instagram, and people will
Hmm.
be able to get a hold of you that way.
That would be great. Best way to get hold of me.
Yay. Okay. I know whenever I'm on a podcast or something like that, and someone's like, "How do people get a hold of you?" I'm like, "Find me in real life." I'm like, "If I see you, then I'll see you." That's how.
Right.
It's funny. But no, you have a great website and all that kind of good stuff. So
Exactly.
we'll link everything. But I'm really looking forward to the workshop. Thank you for this conversation. I mean, I could just talk about it for hours, but you have to get to work.
Yeah.
I need to get to work.
Yep.
But I love you, and thank you for
I love you
being
too,
here.
Kellee. I'm so honored to do this alongside you.
Love
Okay, love
you.
you.
Bye. Thanks again for listening in and joining our yoga community. If it so resonates, please share this episode with a friend. Remember, the inner light of awareness within me honors the inner light of awareness within you. Until next time, stay grounded, stay present, and keep flowing with grace.